On May 9th, Russia held a grand Victory Day parade. 80 years ago, on May 2nd, the Soviet Red Army captured Berlin. On May 8th, German representatives signed the unconditional surrender in Karlshorst, a suburb of Berlin, which was May 9th in Soviet time. Therefore, the Soviet Union designated this day as Victory Day, holding parades and celebrations annually. The Soviet Union was the pinnacle of Russian power, with 22 million square kilometers of territory, controlling regions from eastern Germany to the easternmost part of Asia, separated from Alaska by a single strait, and from the Arctic Ocean to northern Afghanistan. The Soviet Union possessed immense military strength, even surpassing the US and its Western allies in the 1980s. It had a nuclear arsenal capable of destroying the Earth dozens of times and the largest armored group in human history. In 1981, the Soviet Union conducted an exercise codenamed Zapad 81, inviting Western military observers. The powerful mechanized corps and ground-air coordinated advances shocked the entire West. Overnight, fear of Russia reawakened in Western genes. Yet, just 10 years later, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed amid turmoil, splitting into over a dozen countries. At that time, few could predict that Ukraine, once the industrial heart of the Soviet Union, would become a pawn of NATO 20 years later, locked in a prolonged war with Russia. Of course, this narrative structure reflects the Russian perspective, which is unfair to Ukrainians. As an independent nation, Ukraine was long ruled by its so-called Slavic brother, Russia. Stalin's brutal rule caused a horrific famine in Ukraine, starving countless Ukrainians to death. Now, Ukraine and Russia are mired in war, with massive population outflows and countless young people dying in battle. The country grows increasingly hopeless. Yet, even so, Trump has not forgotten to extort Ukraine, demanding its minerals to pay for U.S. military aid. He completely ignores that the U.S. bears undeniable responsibility for Ukraine's current plight. The U.S.'s continuous color revolutions incited hostility between Ukrainians and Russians, pushing a once peaceful nation into the abyss of war. Today, Ukraine has lost 4 eastern states, and Crimea is fully under Russian control. It has gained nothing but endless debt and daily death. Russians are not faring much better. Due to war losses and Western sanctions, Russia has become deeply dependent on China, with its strategic options greatly constrained. Russia faces heavy soldier casualties daily, and even North Korean soldiers are sent to the Russia-Ukraine border as cannon fodder. Speaking of North Korea, although Kim Jong-un did not attend Russia's parade, he has traded the blood of countless North Korean soldiers for Russian weapons technology and economic aid. At this moment, he is likely sipping champagne in his lavish Pyongyang mansion, watching the grand celebration of Xi Jinping and Putin. As a Chinese person, I love my country, but I struggle to imagine why China associates with rogue states like Russia and North Korea. However, the U.S. today does not aim to defeat the CCP, but to crush China, stripping Chinese workers of their meager right to tighten screws. Looking at the leaders of so-called democratic nations, Trump, Modi, these clowns, I think Xi Jinping and Putin are not the worst by comparison. YouTube viewers are always black and white. Many lack historical knowledge and have a shallow understanding of the world, assuming those who support China are CCP lackeys and those who support the U.S. are defenders of democracy. I can responsibly say that the CCP does impose harsh domestic rule, but its foreign policy resembles that of a civilized, responsible power, committed to humanity's long-term development and common interests. Meanwhile, the U.S., the beacon of human civilization, sees the Statue of Liberty's glow fading, nearing extinction. Trump, this clown, is taking hegemony and selfishness to the extreme. Even Hitler and Mussolini were not much worse. Many ask why I do not condemn Russia or support Ukraine. As a Chinese person, I have repeatedly expressed my disgust for Russia, a nation that has been expanding since its founding. It now holds 17 million square kilometers of land and still wants more. I find it hard to like such a country. Russia's historical aggression against China caused profound disasters, with China losing 3 million square kilometers of territory and countless compatriots slaughtered by Russian forces. China's northeastern gem, Haitianway, was renamed Vladivostok by Russia, meaning rule the East. We will not forget this history, and morally, I unequivocally support Ukraine. I cheer for the Ukrainians' brave fight and admire their fearless spirit against a stronger foe. But life is not just about nations, ethnicities, or hatred. It is made up of countless living individuals. During the Soviet era, Russians and Ukrainians gradually merged, coexisting harmoniously as one. The Soviet Union prioritized Ukraine as a key grain and industrial base, investing heavily. After the Soviet collapse, Russia and Ukraine were friendly nations, and Russians in Crimea and eastern Ukraine lived peacefully under the Ukrainian flag. However, U.S. instigation and the greed of political clowns like Zelensky plunged Ukraine and Russia into an irreparable full-scale war. Ukraine deserves national dignity, but facing a far stronger neighbor, its leaders should prioritize national interests, pursue flexible diplomacy, and secure peace for its people instead of joining the U.S.-Russia geopolitical conflict as a U.S. pawn. Ukraine's dire situation today is more Zelensky's fault than Putin's. This is not my claim. Trump said it. Weak nations facing powerful neighbors have ways to coexist while preserving dignity. Canada, as the neighbor of the superpower U.S., stood firm in trade wars, effectively defending its dignity. Carney, when facing Trump, mocked him as just a real estate businessman, earning global praise. Despite Trump's repeated claims of wanting to annex Canada, he has not succeeded, and Canada and the U.S. have not gone to war. While fiercely confronting the U.S., Canada still aligns with the U.S.'s global strategy, sending troops to NATO operations, even traveling thousands of miles to China's coast to endure humiliation from the Chinese Navy on behalf of the U.S. True statesmen should emulate Carney, not clowns like Zelensky. I bear no ill will toward Ukrainians, but I cannot tolerate Ukraine's ambassador visiting the Yasukuni shrine to provoke China. To me, Ukraine is a distant, unfamiliar country. If it fails to respect China and its interests, I do not mind my country providing enough support to Russia to make Ukraine suffer. There are no eternal friends among nations, only eternal interests. As ordinary people, we support whoever aligns with our interests. I have no connection to Ukrainians or Russians, but if Ukrainians fail to respect China, they will pay a price. I deeply grieve for the countless Ukrainian civilian deaths, but this is not China's doing. It is not an excuse for your reckless provocation of China. Do not forget tearing up the Motor Sich merger agreement. The Chinese have not settled many scores out of sympathy for you. Do not repay Chinese goodwill with hatred. If you accuse China of supporting Russia at the UN again, China will send weapons to Russia, and you will see the combat power of a Russia backed by China. Indians know this well. The Chinese weapons supplied to Pakistan are neither China's most advanced nor sufficient in quantity. If China supported Russia with the same intensity as it supports Pakistan, Ukraine would have ceased to exist as a nation long ago. So, Ukrainians, I urge you to stop provoking China. We do not care about your feud with Russia. Do not force us to intervene. 80 years ago, China lived in daily fear under the shadow of Japanese invaders. We will not forget that the glow of the Statue of Liberty shone on China, dispelling the fascist clouds over the Chinese people. The U.S. Flying Tigers and the subsequent 14th Air Force made outstanding contributions to defending Chinese airspace. B-29 bombers, launched from China and Pacific Islands, dropped countless bombs on Japanese fascists, destroying them. The Chinese people will not forget the friendship between our nations. Nor will we forget the US's support when the Soviet Union threatened China with nuclear blackmail, or the remarkable contributions of US businesses, capital, and markets to China's economic development. We hope for eternal friendship between our nations. At the same time, I remind Americans that Chinese people, working over 10 hours daily with intense effort, tirelessly sewing and tightening screws, have supplied the U.S. with countless high-quality, low-cost goods and services, purchased vast amounts of U.S. Treasury bonds, and held substantial U.S. dollar reserves, contributing significantly to U.S. prosperity. Our two nations coexist and prosper together. The Chinese owe the U.S. nothing. As a victor of World War II, China's largest island, Taiwan, remains unrecovered due to U.S. interference. Cross-strait Chinese are provoked by U.S. politicians, risking a bloody conflict like the Russia-Ukraine war at any moment. The Chinese do not want war, but are not afraid of it. If forced onto the battlefield by U.S. oppression, past friendships will vanish, and Chinese fury will make you feel terror far beyond the Korean War or Vietnam War. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the victory in the global anti-fascist war. Humanity's greatest tragedy is its failure to learn from historical disasters. It is the 21st century, with advanced technology and the AI era approaching. With highly developed productivity, material scarcity is no longer an issue. Yet, in such an era, political clowns like Modi, Trump, and Putin remain obsessed with territorial expansion, a tragedy of our time. With highly developed networks, we are fortunate to have platforms like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and X, where we can connect. We should actively resist the arrogant desires of these political maniacs and firmly say no to warmongering, expansionist, war-provoking groups. To those Indians ganging up on X to report me on YouTube, calm down. Your strength cannot sustain your Bharat Empire fantasies. Stop threatening peace. Clean up India and build enough toilets instead of threatening Pakistan or dictating Nepal and Bhutan's foreign policy, or you will regret it.